Hi, my name is Paul Morgan. I'm the chairman of Thurrock Marching Brass, and underneath Thurrock Marching Brass, we have a Winter Guard unit called Thurrock Academy. In fact, our colour guard is Thurrock Academy. It consists just of the marching members in the guard. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we were faced with a really big challenge, and that was the success of the colour guards at the time. The colour guard program, the winter guard program, meant that we were having most, not all, but most of the musicians actually trying out in the colour guards, and we ended up with 3 colour guards, and they were growing, and that's all great. But it isn't what actually brings revenue in. The band actually brings revenue in. So we were facing we're looking at having a winter program that literally just was non-existent. So, most of the things that we were doing didn't even start till about April. So winter would finish at the end of March, beginning of April. Then we would start the actual summer program. And we found that it was really difficult to catch up. At the very lower level, at the cadet level, we had some success. I think that's probably because of lack of competition rather than actually excelling, at the productions, although the productions were fabulous. So as we've moved up the classes, obviously that's going to be, became quite a bigger challenge. So we took the conscious decision to refocus on the band, and that created a really big challenge in its own right, because not everyone wanted to do that. So we lost quite a number of students and members who still wanted to spin in winter, and that's great. We sent great portfolios and information about each member to organisations that were happy to let them spin in theirs. And even today, those that haven't returned are just amazing talent. They've just developed so well, and we're incredibly proud of all of them. But in terms of the organisation and why we've chosen our new design direction, which I think we're in our 3rd year of this type of designing. When you work with really, really young kids, it's often difficult when you go out on a job to really deliver a full-blown, enjoyable production, especially when kids are not there. So, with working with youngsters, often you don't really know. It's a concertina. You don't know if you're going to get a full unit or you're going to get 50% or 75%. It's just an unknown. So we thought about all of that, and we decided to take the expertise that we have from our Winter Guard programs, which is significant. I mean, we have a lot of experience in the Winter Guard programs, and see if we could create something that we could smash the summer sort of design processes and thoughts into. So combine those two skills to create something that actually the number of members becomes not the primary requirement. So we started in, I believe it was 2016, I think it was. Yeah, the closed cards down in 2015. And we created a soundtrack initially for what the production was going to be about. We then took the musical arrangements and we listened to the soundtrack that we created, but we decided not just to sort of emulate it. There are parts where the melody line is unmistakable. You often can't get away from the melody line. But what we did is we said that we would enhance the soundtrack, and the soundtrack would support the musical arrangement. And so the way to describe it really is if you draw an imaginary red line, and that is the soundtrack. Now, if you can then imagine that there are random gaps, dropped away from that red line at different lengths, representing time. You've got a line that's kind of disjointed. It's not quite full. And now if you imagine filling in all of those gaps with a blue line. The blue line is our music arrangements. So we combine the two elements to sort of overlap and work in conjunction with each other. Sometimes they overlap in terms of the musicality, you know, directly, as I've said, with the melody. But most of the time, chord structures in the audio soundtrack are enhanced and created bigger with more depth within the musical written arrangements, and vice versa. So often people have made a comment where we've gone down this design path of saying all you're doing is pressing a button to start the soundtrack and you're just playing along like it's karaoke. Well, it's so much more complicated than karaoke, because if one element is deficient, then the whole production kind of doesn't really sound the same. But it's enough of a production that when we take it out on the road, and bearing in mind Thurrock usually do about 31 gigs a year, 6 competitions, so there's quite a lot of activity outside of the competitive circle. We can still put on a really enjoyable production for, you know, the layperson out there. So that's why we've gone down this design path, and I think it was very new when we tried it in 2016, and people didn't get it at all. So it's taken some time for us to sort of refine that and really try and educate people of what it is that actually we're doing within the design. So that's really key for us. What's been really great is over the last 3 years, so we're now in 2018, we've evolved in terms of, you know, we've created a longer blue line and a smaller red line, for example. So we've evolved to make sure that the two halves, the almost the Winter Guard production and the summer musical arrangement production, actually creates more depth and more colour, more variation, more styles that should be more recognisable, but also within a theme that actually becomes hopefully enjoyable and readable. Because what we don't want to do is to have to send out a synopsis about what the programme is about, because people in the crowd, they don't get access to any of that stuff. So, you know, I'm a big fan of, if you have to explain it to me, you know what, you know, is that great design, you know? But so to a certain extent, some people will never get some parts of any programme. That's just the nature of the beast. But what we tried to do is to create something that actually, within a very short space of time, it's like, I know what they're doing. You know what? And it's actually quite a really, really good production. We're very lucky in the elements that we've got to put into the actual visual production, because that's the layer that sits on top. We've got a very strong colour guard. Our percussion is getting stronger and stronger. It's probably the strongest it's ever been since we relaunched in 2010. A brass line now, even though they're small in numbers, have a lot of depth in the arrangements, which are suited for their ability. And when you write to somebody's ability, they actually feel comfortable, so they can actually project and play a lot more stronger than actually you would ordinarily do when you're given something that actually may be a little bit beyond where you're capable. We do stretch the students, but we know what their capabilities are, and we know how far we can stretch them. So my musical arrangements are really, really important, because that's how they're scored. I mean, that we write to the students we have, not to the students we don't have. And that works. So when you add all of those three pieces of the pie together, essentially that's what this design product is. This year we're doing a really, really wonderful production about Robin Williams, completely nuts, but also what a brilliant actor. The material was so deep. He did something like 52 films. He did voiceovers. He did serious acting. He did tomfoolery. He was the biggest tomfool on the circuit of the movie industry, and so that was quite a challenge to actually put that all together. So what we've done is we've put essentially four parts. Now, those of you that know me also know my wife and partner in crime, Marie Layson, or Marie Layson Morgan, as she was, and she, for the last few years, has suffered with cancer, and we sadly lost Marie in May of this year to cancer, and that's been a devastation to all of us, and all of the people that have ever touched or known Marie have been affected by that. So this year's production, I wanted to put a bit of her in it. And so we introduce Robin Williams with a bit of a medley, really, of a culmination of a number of different films that most people would recognise if they heard the music to them. And we add a narration with a little innocent girl, asking her Auntie Anne who this Robin Williams. She sort of finds a cine reel, and she asks who Robin Williams is. So obviously Auntie Anne is recalling all of the many things that Robin Williams meant to her, and that starts. We've got a projector sort of image that then they put the reel on. It's almost like going to start the scene, and we pull the curtain back to open the first scene, almost like you do in a cinema, where the curtains open up and you're presented with the production via the cinematic film. So that's how we start. Now, one of the things that we were looking at in the original design, because we knew that Marie was seriously ill, and my youngest daughter, Marie's daughter, Rihanna Jane, is in the colour guard, and she's been in the colour guard since we reformed in 2010. She's the guard captain. We're incredibly proud of her. So the original idea was to record Rihanna and Marie's voices so that we would have a record of Marie forever. Sadly, that wasn't possible because Marie declined at the point that we were looking at that. Marie declined quite rapidly. And so that was not possible to do that, and we certainly weren't going to force that. So the original idea was that. We've turned to some professional voiceover artists, a child and a lady, and we've obviously given them the narration, and they've created that narration for us. So that's what's built into the production in terms of the pacing and going from one point to another. That's the link between each of the parts, and it's the storyline of the little girl sort of really trying to get an understanding of who Robin Williams was. So the Seize the Day production, which we call part one, there are 4 parts, is by a really, really brilliant band called Melody Sheep. And when I spoke to the guys there, they sent over lots of sound bites for me. I mean, they were really, really supportive. Once they found out, we're creating a production for kids, they were brilliant. And so we've got complete blessing from all the guys there to basically create something that was, using their original materials, but enhancing what we were doing. So the actual soundtrack itself are some bites of the Melody Sheep number, which is a tribute to Robin Williams. And what we've done is we've again put the Blue Line fills in and added the musical element. The front line have quite a significant role to play in that production. The brass are featured, the percussion are featured, and again we've featured a colour guard. So it's quite a wonderful opening to say, for anyone that's never really understood who Robin Williams is, there's a lot of variety in there to at least give you an idea that the guy actually was really quite talented. The narration then moves on into part 2, and the little girl asks her Auntie Anne if he was always a serious man, and this was something that really was quite important for me to put into this production. There's a film called Patch Adams, and he's a real doctor, but he developed a way to make children smile. And what was special about that was the children that he made smile were all cancer patients. So obviously that's something quite dear to our hearts, certainly here, and again, as I've said before, to anyone that ever knew or interacted with Marie. So that link to this terrible disease is really quite poignant for us. And so I looked at the entire score, and there's a track within the film score called Children's Ward, and it's a beautiful ballad, and so it was really lovely to be able to arrange against that soundtrack, and again using the colour guard skills of editing soundtracks, we've created a red line with some lovely gaps that we fill just with our front line. And that works really, really well. It's a beautiful ballad. It really allows us to showcase our colour guard in their graceful form. So again, a completely different feel, different emotion. And again, that's deliberately designed to do that. And the actual feel that we want everybody to experience is that thought, that deep thought about this terrible thing that can take anybody away at any time. So sad, not devastating, but that sense of emotion that makes you reflect. And I think the ballad, the way that it's scored, does just that. Now, the ending, I add two voices to the main melody theme on the front line, and I do that for a specific reason. And it didn't work really with adding another part in the front line. It was just too harsh. Even with softer sticks, it just didn't work. So I experimented with the two brass players just coming in for that final conclusion. And there's a reason for that in the production that at the moment we've not released. We won't be releasing that until DCK Finals, because there's something special that's going to mean an awful lot to anyone that ever knew Marie. So that now they were facing the front field. We've actually changed that back because it makes it a little bit softer. They aren't the actual primary voice. What they are an accompaniment. They are an accompanying voice to the front line as they conclude the piece with the undertone of the soundtrack, just sort of giving it a little bit of depth. So from there, and that will be incredibly powerful once we deliver that. From there, the little girl asks, what sort of made him tick and stuff like that. What was he with? Is he still with us? And asking whether or not, is he alive or he's not? And obviously the Auntie Anne says sadly no, because obviously Robin Williams not too long ago actually passed away. So that's part of why we're quite sensitive about the material that we've chosen. We want to make sure that we respect anybody that has got something that means something to them about this great man. So it's an incredibly important responsibility in some respects to make sure that the design does respect that. And so what we've done is we moved into part 3 with a friend, because Auntie Anne explains that he taught everybody that friendship is more important than anything else in the world. If you've got good friendship, then anything's possible, because more than one person doing something, actually, you can achieve more. Many minds can create anything. And friends that get together often create some wonderful things. So there was really only one piece that we could slot into that idea and that thought process, and that was Aladdin's, or Disney's Aladdin's, Friend Like Me. And of course, that's quite a upbeat, funky. Kids know the words, they know the tune, and so for that particular piece, we were able to make the red line, the actual soundtrack, even more of a gap, and fill that with both the brass and the percussion and the front line. So really start to showcase the actual talents that we've got musically as well, against that sort of undertone of the backdrop. And it's a brilliantly fun piece, and the visual element that has been put in and designed it's really sort of augments that, and it is a fun piece. And so far, whenever we've aired that, either in the community where we really are quite prevalent, or on the competition field, people know that tune and they get behind it, and that works. So we really enjoy it. The kids enjoy that part as well. We needed to find a way to conclude the production, and so what we did is we again turned to a voiceover that Robin Williams did in a film called Happy Feet, and we chose to overlay two different types of musical genre. Really, we have a Latin version of My Way, a Mi Manera, and that's the Happy Feet version. But also, My Way is a very, very well-known tune that Frank Sinatra sang and other crooners sang. So when thinking about that side of the production, the final narration basically just explains that Robin Williams just did stuff in his own way. I mean, he was unique. There was nothing that nobody could replicate him. He was entirely a one-off. And so My Way is just such a perfect way to sort of reflect and represent that. So what we've done is what we've attempted to overlay the red line of the musical soundtrack, in which is Latin, with a very, very strict 4/4 almost Frank Sinatra crooner version musically in the musical arrangement. So we've got completely two different genres with just slight syncopation changes have actually knitted together, I feel, and we feel, really, really well. And when you realise that's what's going on, but it's a really, really sort of clever thing. But then when you realise that these are 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds are actually performing that, it just blows my mind, that they're capable of doing that. And that really is a testament to the staff around these kids. They're an incredible base. We're very, very blessed with that. And so we conclude with a really, really big ending of My Way, and there is something coming for this UK finals, which we're not talking about. We're just telling you that it's coming, which will be spectacular. The production will conclude in a brilliant, brilliant way. So that's the thought process behind this year's production, which we've called The Storyteller. And a lot of people involved in the production, the ideas, the construction, the visual elements. Special mention, to the likes of Dave and Glenn in the percussion room, Malcolm in the front line, Lara in the front line, Nettie in the brass line. We've got all sorts of assistants. We've got Mark on the visuals, an amazing colour guard director we've got in Charmaine Mansfield, and she is a chip off the old block with the old man, who, without his involvement, we would never have got the production out, because while I was going through some very difficult times with dealing with the Marie situation, Ken Mansfield stepped forward and said, okay, I'll take your ideas and I'll create you a visual production. And for that, we will be eternally grateful. Of course, we've modified it and altered it as we've got feedback. But what Ken has penned for us has been absolutely fantastic. So, for that, we will always be eternally grateful. Ken, being a previous core director as well of the organisation, I think it's just fitting, and a guard director. It's just fitting that one of our own was able to step in and do such a brilliant job. So, all round, we've got a really, really good production, I think, but it works for the age group that we've got. We don't profess to be anything we're not. We are a junior drum and bugle corps and a junior performing arts unit. So that's what we take out into the community. They love that. We love that. The kids enjoy that, and hopefully most of the people that actually look at the programme will enjoy it too. So that's it for the 2018 production, The Storyteller, a tribute to Robin Williams. We hope you enjoy it.